Alrighty, everyone, welcome back to another live stream here on the channel. Glad to see everybody back in the stream. We got 45 people watching. We just hit 2 minutes in, so that's awesome. Looks like everyone who normally is interested in severe weather has returned. I'm glad to have you guys here for another stream. We got a lot of people in here, so welcome everybody. If I welcome each individual person, that might be like the whole live stream in and of itself. So I just welcome everyone to the live stream. Hopefully you're having a fantastic Tuesday, at least as good of a Tuesday as you can have. And glad to be back here talking about severe weather with y'all. All right, let's switch over to our main scene. Everything looks good. Those nice, sleek, fresh, new SBC graphics at the top left. Of course, we'll full screen that and go more in depth to the new SPC outlooks that came out today. They are confusing for the general public, but the good news is for us weather enthusiasts, as well as people who relay the overall weather patterns and severe weather threats, as well as meteorologists, of course, that is really going to help us be able to forecast a lot better. It's going to be able to help us really nail down these overall severe weather threats and exactly where the severe weather threat is the highest. Alrighty, let's just go to make sure everything is good to go. Haven't been here in a hot minute, so just want to check everything is good. Someone said lag. I think that is on your end. My end is good. Audio is good. We are rolling. We are rolling. Tornado season is meteorological wise underway. It is March 3rd, 2026. As you can see just above my face cam there, right above my head, that is March 3rd, 2026. So 2 days ago, tornado season started, and it is underway, and it is looking to be a very active first stretch and first week of severe weather here in our 2026 tornado season. So let's go right ahead and we'll talk about the graphics here from the SPC. So we might as well just go right over to their page first. Just want to check that. Got a little severe thunderstorm warning out there just to the south of our radar site in central Illinois. But let's go ahead and switch that off. And we will switch that over to the National Weather Service. So this is the Storm Prediction Center, obviously. This is their page. It looks very, very familiar, pretty much the same. My pen just literally vanished. Like, where the heck did it go? Yep, it ain't gonna work, so we gotta pull up Task Manager here. But it looks relatively the same, except for you could see 3 big changes here. Obviously being our day 1, our day 2, and our day 3 outlooks have all changed. Day 1, day 2, and day 3. I hope that tomorrow they will update that day 4 through 8 outlook. They said they're not going to, but hopefully they change their mind and just change the background map because it looks a little bit weird. Same with the thunderstorm risk. Same with, like, I think we should change all of these background white maps with the old 2011, 2012 background map, update them to the 2026 map like what we have today. So let's go ahead and dive on into our outlook for today. So we've got, oh man, doesn't this look so nice? You can't tell me this looks very, very nice, does it not? Like, come on. Come on, that looks so much better, let's be honest. So we got our level 0.5 is what we like to call it, our general thunderstorm risk, and then our level 1 dark marginal risk for severe weather today in this new graphic. This is generally the same in terms of a category from 0 to 5. So it looks really, really good in my opinion. And yeah, but the core of it is still the same. Now, there has been a few complaints. My main complaint is they actually fixed it. My main complaint is they fixed it. Never mind. I no longer have a complaint. The city, New York City, was actually retitled a different city, and they already fixed it. So no complaints here. I know there's a few complaints about like the higher end cities here. Like for instance, DC, not on this map. Raleigh, not on this map. The higher population cities, some are missing. Lake Charles, not on this map. Tulsa, Oklahoma, not on this map. A big one is Kansas City, Missouri, not on this map. So there's definitely some cities that I hope that they add in the future, especially Lake Charles really needs to be added. Lake Charles, because you could see the gap. Clearly, we're missing a city right here, and it's Lake Charles. But as for the core graphic itself, it is still generally the same. It just looks a lot more modern, a lot better. Tornado risk, less than 2%. That's still the same. Obviously, they've changed the text a little bit there. They've changed the font down in here, although it still looks relatively the same, still looks clean. And they've added this intensity guidance here at the bottom right. So tornadoes, your probability 2, 5, 10, 15, 30, 45, 60. We'll never see 60 again in our lifetime. Let's face it. That's what it feels like. And then we also have these very new intensity groups. We've got a 1, a 2, and a 3. And these are not significant. These are not SIG groups as in SIG. They are not significant threats for severe weather. They are significant as in CIG. They are conditional intensity groups. They are not significant. They are not significant intensity groups, even though we only really had one, and that was our normal hatched. So we've got 3 different hatched risks now that the SPC can issue, and you can see 2% chance is not out for the SPC today. If we go to the hail risk, there it is. We already have a significant risk here. That's going to be weird. How are we going to word this? How does Weatherwise word it? Let's see. Okay, so we'll say SIG group, SIG 1. That's what we'll say, SIG 1. So we already have a SIG 1 out here. Our first outlook by the Storm Prediction Center for today. Actually, this is the second one. We had one at 1630Z. This one is 20Zs when they issued this. And they have only, for the hail risk, they only have 2 significant groups. They have SIG 1 and SIG 2. SIG 1, you can see, is outlined here from Wichita down all the way into northwestern Oklahoma. And then they have the large 5% hail risk. That's the same too. But we've never had a SIG 1 or a significant 5% risk for hail. That was not a thing in the old outlooks. So what does this significant one mean? What does it even mean here? Well, for hail, in this case, I am pretty sure a SIG Group 1 hail risk is a maximum hailstone of 2 inch in diameter. So I'm pretty sure that the highest end hailstone that is anticipated today could be up to 2 inches in diameter. And there's a 5% chance every 25 miles of a given point inside of that SIG Group 1 risk. And then SIG 2, which we don't have, I'm pretty sure is for 3.75 inch hail, being the maximum hail intensity for that given day. So basically, it's just letting us know the ceiling for the day. That's really what it is. And on these lower echelon in days like today, where there's not a lot of confidence that we have big hailstones, but if we do get that one supercell that manages to plant itself in northern Oklahoma, it could probably produce upwards of a considerable hailstone of 1.75 inch or 2 inch in diameter hail. So it is a little confusing. It's going to be taking some, it's going to take some time to get used to. But yeah, definitely going to be a little bit more difficult to convey to the general public. And I know some meteorologists are just straight up not going to be they're just not going to be conveying the SIG groups because it could get too confusing. And then we have our wind risk is less than 5%. And we also have a day 2 risk, of course, here. And this is where you get to see the first slight risk for severe weather we have ever seen here on our new SPC outlooks. They have this large level 2 out of 5 slight risk outlined from just north of Waco, Texas, through Dallas, all the way back up here into south central Illinois, almost into southwestern Indiana, a little sliver of southwest Indiana there for that level 2 out of 5, a level 1 out of 5 marginal around that, and then our level 0.5 general thunderstorm risk around that. Tornado risk for tomorrow is 2%. And by the way, we can get a 2% SIG 1. That is a possibility. We can also get a 2%, I believe, SIG 2. And I don't think we can get a 2% SIG 3. I believe that is not a possibility. That doesn't make sense. So I don't think we can have a 2% SIG 3. If you don't know what that means for tornadoes, SIG 1, strong tornadoes possible, EF2 intensity. SIG 2, intense tornadoes, EF3 possible. SIG 3, EF4 or EF5 tornadoes possible. So a SIG 3 2% would not make any sense. A 2% chance every 25 miles of a given point for an EF4 or EF5 tornado. That doesn't make sense. You're just not going to see that. So we don't have any significant risk out for our tornado threat for tomorrow. We have that big 2% risk. Wind threat, they don't have any SIG groups either, just a large 5% and a large 15%. But wait a second. If you are a weather enthusiast, you pay attention to these probabilities, something's changed with our wind outlook. We actually have a dark blue 75% and a cyan blue 90% chance for damaging winds on our legend here at the bottom right. So we can actually get up to a 90% SIG 3. Could you imagine that? Could you imagine that? 90% SIG 3? Dude, I doubt we'll ever see that, honestly, but it is there just in case we somehow need it. And I'll be honest with you, I didn't look into this particular group, so I'm not too sure the wind probs of each of these. I'm assuming maybe 70, 80, and 90, but I'll have to look into that. Catman, I don't know if you know exactly what these SIG groups are, but we do have that possibility of getting a SIG 3 90%. And then our hail threat is, of course, 5%, 15% in the yellow, 5% in the brown, 15% in the yellow, and they didn't change these probabilities. Still 5 to 60 on that. So pretty cool stuff. So yeah, that's the main ordeal with our SPC new graphics there. And then day 3, we actually have something new here as well. This legend has also been changed. If you remember, it used to be a tiny little box in the bottom right. Tiniest little thing down here. They've, of course, changed that to the vertical format, just like they've done with every other day, labeling it from a risk 0. We call this 0.5 on this channel. Because you're going to have a chance for some lightning and some thunderstorms. But technically, it is a 0. But we call it a 0.5 because this is a 0, this is a 0, and then this is a 1. So that doesn't make sense. So we ended up calling that a 0.5. Just to make it a little bit easier. So yeah, generally the same here as well. But the biggest thing that's changed with this is look at that. We've got hatched risks for 5% now, as well as a SIG group 2. So we've got the chance for a second intensity group, as well as our 5% hatched risks being now a thing that the SPC can issue. And they have issued that actually all the way up into Hastings in south central Nebraska under a 5 significant risk. So what that means is, so this is the day 3 outlook. That means there is a 5% chance every 25 miles of a given point of one of the two significant groups. So again, I don't know the wind threat, but that would be a 5% chance for 5% chance for two up to 2-inch hail, and or a 5% chance for, I don't know what it is, up to 75-mile-an-hour winds. I got to look at that, but I don't know the site, so I'm not sure what it is for damaging winds. So yeah, that's what they have for the day 3 outlook. Our first day 3 outlook by the SPC on this new categorical risk, and it includes a 5 sig and a 15 sig there. So I have to look more into that. I can tell you this, one thing that is already something that I don't like is there's no way for you to know, well, there is a way. There is a way. Look at that. Oh, Lord, have mercy. Lord, help me. What am I looking at? Okay, so yeah, there you go. Just like I thought for our tornado risk. Yeah, there's no SIG 3 for our tornado risk. No SIG 3 for our tornado risk, but I want to find out the SIG groups. Okay, so there's your, you can see EF2, EF3, and EF4 for that. Oh, hey, look, and they got all the Zulu times too. You can't see it because of the way I have my screen, but you can see the issuance time, outlook times here too. Frequency average yearly at or above each category. Look at that. 2 to 3 days per year, we're at a high risk. 14 days, we are at a moderate. 80 to 85 days, we're at enhanced. That's crazy. 200 days, we are at a slight. Gracious day. 270 to 280 days, we're at a level 1. And then 350 to 355 days, we are at a general thunderstorm risk. I'm still trying to figure out. Aha, there we go. SIG 1 is up to 55 knots, which is, I think, 60 miles an hour. Oh, wait, no, that's SIG 2. SIG 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so what in the world? Oh, so this is the... Oh, okay, I get it. So within the SIG 1, this isn't what they are, I don't believe. But within the SIG 1 grouping, 55% of damaging wind gusts that were in the SIG 1 were 50 to 55 knots, which is 55 to 60 miles per hour. So that's not the definition of our wind gusts for our significant groups. Because you can see here, we don't have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 significant groups. That's really good data, though. This just means that the SPC has been, they've obviously been testing these groups, and SIG 1 and SIG 2 verify very well. SIG 3 verifies pretty well, and the reason why is because you can see the gray probability, this dark gray, is actually higher than this light gray by 1%. Which means that there's actually the slightest more verification in stronger wind gusts for SIG 3. I still don't see the definition of the SIG groups, though. Still not seeing it, man. Nope. This is still very informative, but I don't see the SIG groups. If you want to go look at that yourself, this is any SPC outlook on the day 1 through 3 outlook. Go to the top, click this. Right up here. But I can't find the SIG group for damaging wind. So I know how to look that up. I just can't play the audio, so I'm not going to do that right now. Yeah, I'm going to try to say SIG 1, SIG 2, SIG 3. That's what I'm going to try to say for these. Instead of, like, hatched. I'll try to get rid of that term and just go to SIG instead of like hatched 1, hatched 2, hatched 3. That would be weird to say. So, there we go. All right. And then we could go to our day 4 through 8 outlook, which, like I said, I hope they update this to the more modern outlooks like they have to a bunch of the other outlooks. They updated day 1, day 2 fire risks are the modern outlooks, and the SPC day 1 through 3 other modern outlooks. I hope they change that for this as well. You can see there's they still don't have the more sleek map like what they do for day 1 and 2 and 3 for the SBC. So for day 4, this is Friday, we do have a very large 15% chance for severe weather out here across this yellow area. And then the SBC has decided to upgrade to a 30% chance for severe weather inside that orange area. So yeah, very, very large slight risk for severe weather. It's not that often that we get this large of slight risks. At least 2 to 3 times a year minimum where we see slight risks this large on the SBC site beyond 2 days out, but they're not common. And I would say for this early in the tornado season, this is a little bit rare. It is a little bit rare, but this setup overall is not extremely impressive. I don't think we are talking about a moderate risk caliber event for Friday, and I don't think we are talking about anything greater than a 10% tornado risk for this, unless our models really shift to a better storm mode and our trough gets better well defined. So not a very impressive risk for severe weather. Definitely a big time damaging wind day. SIG 1 is up to 75 miles per hour. SIG 2 is around 85 miles per hour. And SIG 3 is around, I hope not that, 95 miles per hour. Obviously, that's a typo. Yeah, that would make sense. I'm going to check that after stream just to make sure. But that makes sense. Do you think that'll make the enhanced risk bigger? They might, but honestly, with the new guidance that we have at the moment today, this enhanced risk is really, honestly, perfectly fine. It is a little bit further to the south than our newest guidance. Same with this 15%. A lot of the newer guidance doesn't have a whole lot of severe weather down here, and definitely not a whole lot of significant severe weather possible that far south. So I think this is a little too far south. And then a northeast expansion, I don't think we have any confidence to see them shift that up to the northeast at all. So I don't expect it. I don't expect a huge change into the day 3 outlook tomorrow. And then day 5, we have predictability too low. There's 2 areas to watch on day 5. We're going to be watching a stalling out cold front down here, and we're going to be watching the progression of our cold front from the day following Friday's event into the kind of eastern Midwest and northeastern United States. So 2 areas to watch on Saturday. Both of them are marginal caliber at the moment. And if things do uptrend, I wouldn't be surprised if they end up bringing a slight risk back for one of those 2 areas. And that's Saturday, Sunday, and then Monday. So, yeah. Beyond Saturday, there's way too much uncertainty to discuss severe weather. We definitely got to get through these first few days and first few events. What I think about next Tuesday, too much uncertainty. I looked at that office stream. There is a wide variety of possibilities. There could be a big-time severe threat in Texas, Louisiana. There could be absolutely nothing in Texas, Louisiana. There could be a big-time severe threat in Iowa. There could be absolutely nothing in Iowa. There could be a big-time severe threat in Ohio and Indiana. There could be absolutely nothing in Ohio and Indiana. So, and there could just be absolutely nothing as a whole. There's a lot of different possibilities for next Tuesday. That's an entire 7 days out, so there's no point in really discussing that. I mean, you can just keep an eye on it to see how trends go, but right now, I wouldn't be I wouldn't be concerned about that threat at the moment. All right, let's talk about our severe potential. So for today, we've got this relatively weak southwesterly flow across northern Oklahoma into southern Kansas, western Missouri. that is the general area we are watching today. We're generally watching where that flow is the highest, right in here. And it's going to be really a complete nocturnal event, honestly. We're really not going to see much of a severe threat ramp up until probably, I'd say, close to like 2 a.m. We'll go check our models, but it really seems like it's a complete overnight event. I'll go ahead and check real quick. Let's see. Yep, 1, 2 a.m. storms fire in Oklahoma. 2 a.m. there, 3 a.m. Eastern, 4 a.m., 5 a.m. So when these storms first fire, that's probably going to be their best chance between roughly 12:30 and 3:30 a.m. Eastern time. That's going to be the best chance for us to see hail at or greater than 1 inch in diameter. Especially you can see that hatched area right in here. I said hatched. It is still a hatched area. It's SIG 1. Our SIG 1 right in there for hail. And the best chance for hail is definitely going to be on that southwest quadrant, it looks like, right? When those storms really mature towards 1:32 a.m. Eastern. So that's roughly where our severe weather threat is tonight. Then we go into tomorrow, Wednesday, March 4th. Really not a whole lot changes. We might get a weak low pressure, possibly. A weak low pressure trying to form across Nebraska. That won't really play a huge role into our severe weather threat for Wednesday. Take a look at dew points. You could see a very sharp access here of dew point setup of 60 dew points or greater in the area I've drawn in pink. And there's a very small area where these storms are going to fire. Really small, thin, narrow corridor. This narrow corridor right in here is where we are watching for severe weather for not tomorrow. Is that tomorrow? Yeah, that is tomorrow. My bad. That narrow corridor for tomorrow evening and tomorrow night is where we're watching for the best chance of severe weather. Right where that boundary really is. That's where those storms are going to fire. And mainly the main threat for tomorrow is going to be hail. I think our greatest threat is hail upwards of 2 inch in diameter being a possibility. And then we could also see some damaging winds. I really don't think we're going to see much more than 65 mile an hour wind gust. And then we could also see a brief tornado. There is a conditional risk for tomorrow, and I'm wondering if the Storm Prediction Center is going to highlight a conditional risk. Back down into, if we go ahead and check here, 18Z HRRR. Yeah, these guys are a conditional risk right in here. If they do fire, they should be in a pretty decent environment for large hailstones and possibly even a tornado or two. So I wonder if we go to the SPC Outlook here, we look at the day 2 risk. I wonder if they're going to highlight a SIG 1 across those areas. SIG 1 is going to be common. Okay, SIG 1 is going to be very common. We're going to see that really, really often throughout this severe weather season. So when you see a hatch risk on the day 2 outlook, don't get shocked whatsoever, because SIG 1 is going to be very common. We're going to see that a lot of severe weather days. SIG 2 is very different. That's going to be a bit rarer. And then SIG 3, I don't think we'll see SIG 3 risks much at all this year. SIG 3 is going to be very, very rare. But I'll have to research these outlooks too, because I didn't do a very in-depth dive into the new SPC outlooks. That's why I don't know the the damaging wind risk is. Let's see. I'm curious what this has. Yeah, so I'll go look into that more on my own time. All right, this is the NAM model here. We'll go ahead and pull this out. So again, that's for tomorrow's risk. Just still broad, pretty weak southwesterly flow. A little bit of stronger southwesterly flow in these areas. However, if we take a look at that based off of Cape 2, you can see it really doesn't overlap. So this is not a great setup for severe weather. It's very sloppy. Just take a look at our HRRR for tomorrow. And again, you could see it wouldn't shock me if we get a significant Sig 1 risk down in this area, because it's conditional. If storms fire, they're probably going to be severe and end up dropping large hail. And then up here, it's just really a slop fest. There's going to be some brief windows where we could see some, spin up weak tornado or two here or there across Arkansas, Oklahoma into Texas and Missouri, but really not anything noteworthy for tomorrow. I'd say tomorrow is barely slight risk caliber. It is like right on that edge, and not an impressive setup whatsoever. And then we go into Thursday, another, guess what, conditional risk. Another conditional risk. Thursday evening, Thursday night, we'll have this pretty strong amplifying trough here across the Four Corners area. You'll notice it is positively tilted, which does not favor severe weather. However, out in front of it, it does have this very weak flow. A really, really weak flow here. And I do want to see if we got a lower level jet to it. See, now that's going to be what helps your storms fire. This lower level jet is really what's going to carry any severe weather potential we have on Thursday. Not a sharp dry line. I mean, I take that back. Sharp dry line, it's just not strong. So, a very conditional risk on Thursday. I think hail is by far the biggest threat, followed by damaging winds, and then the tornado threat is the lowest out of all three. So, not too impressed with Thursday's setup either. Let me go to the NAM 3K. Let's see if the NAM 3K shows anything. Yeah, NAM 3K doesn't initiate anything. You could see the change in wind direction right in here, where you go from southerly winds here to southwesterly winds. So you do have, I'm assuming, your weak dry line roughly over there. I can't believe I drew that. Can I get... Oh, I can't pull it back up. Oh, there you go. Very rough estimate. I definitely didn't draw it perfectly, but very rough estimate of where your dry line is. Extremely rough. And you just don't have good dew points. I mean, you're sitting around low 60s, upper 50s, which, as long as your temps aren't too high, low 60s, upper 50s. So, I mean, it's not bad. Okay shear, especially in the panhandle. And then your cape is very late. Is that the same on other models too? Big difference. Huge difference between the NAM and the GFS. The GFS has your dry line already in place. Pretty stable dry line, although it is definitely low dew points. It has that dry line in place, good instability in place. And then the NAM has a just-in-time type of ordeal, where you're trying to get that cape in place just in time for storms to initiate. But it just doesn't. It just doesn't initiate. So we'll have to see which one looks more probable. The NAM or the GFS solution. And right now, I'm going to lean towards the GFS solution. Because why? The GFS, the Euro, and the Canadian are all in agreement. So I would toss that NAM model out as an outlier. I would not be listening to that. Here's the high-resolution Canadian for what it's worth. And you can see that fires plenty of thunderstorms along that dry line. Or very close to that dry line. Those fire like... What are those even firing on? Oh, a shortwave. Look at that. Those are firing along a little shortwave right in there. Those are firing along a shortwave. Can you see it at 700? Yep. Sure can. Clear as day shortwave. That's what those are firing off of. And yeah, that's what the GFS has. And I'm guessing the NAM doesn't have that. I mean, the NAM has it. It's just extraordinarily weak. See how you don't really have too much digging here? These these geopotential height bars here, they're all relatively southwest to northeast, whereas if you go back to the high-res Canadian and we go out a little bit further, you can see this little areas of digging in these regions. And that's what allows these storms to fire on the high-res Canadian. And they fire right on, like, they're firing, like, right on the line of 50-degree dew points and 60-degree dew points right there. Look at Cape here, too. Yeah, and you can see there is no such thing as just-in-time Cape on the Canadian high-res here. No such thing as just-in-time Cape. Big old open warm sector of 1,000 to 2,400, 2,300. Yep, 2,300, 2,400 instability there. Big old warm sector. GFS has that big warm sector, just weaker. So, like I said, I would count the NAM as an outlier. And I would assume following right next to that is the NAM 3K as an outlier as well. Sure is. Sure is. So we'll have to watch that. We'll have to watch that on Thursday. We'll have to watch to see where our 60-degree dew points are. Thursday afternoon, are our 60-degree dew points all up in here? Or are they more in like a sharp line like this? Which again, I would vote on this one, where it's all across the worm sector. Thinking the NAM's an outlier there. So with that being said, where's the main area to watch? Well, definitely going to be southwest, actually maybe even to central Kansas. Central southwest Kansas into the northern panhandle of Texas, western panhandle of Oklahoma. That'd be the main area to watch in this case. And then possibly also further down to the south, depending on that dry line. Yeah, see, that would not be good enough. Probably not good enough for anything really good to fire south of that. So that's the main area to watch. And then there is definitely a secondary area further down here. If there's enough ingredients in that area. Not if there's not a lot of cap. If your cape's already in place and if your dew points are better. Because 53, 54 dew points is not going to be cutting it along the dry line. Definitely a very late, at least according to this, a very late evening into the overnight hours event. Wonder if that's some storms firing there on the GFS. This is near 1, 2 a.m. So, yeah. So far, all of these setups, not impressive today. Obviously not impressive. Tomorrow, the only area I'd be watching is near and south of the DFW. And maybe a secondary little area south of St. Louis, Missouri for tomorrow, but mainly interested in Texas because of that conditional hail risk. And then you go into your big day Friday, which a lot of uncertainty with, for sure. Look at the temperature difference between GFS, Euro, NAM, and HRRR. Yeah, that's cloud cover. Differences in cloud cover across all those. I'm assuming the NAM, can we look at cloud cover here? Nope. Oh, yep. Yeah. Yeah, GFS has a lot less cloud cover. NAM has a whole lot more. And then we could go ahead on into Friday. Friday, it's a tough one. The number one thing we got to look at is the trough. How do we have a closed low? Which in this case we do. And how much digging are we seeing with the said trough? So we do have a closed low on the 500 millibar GFS model run. And we do have really good digging. So what this allows for is this allows for divergence aloft across a large area. Now you'll notice there's not a lot in Oklahoma and southern Kansas. So if storms do fire midday across those areas, that would be a big time explosive dry line setup right there. And that is what some models have hinted towards, is an explosive environment right along a sharp dry line in Oklahoma in the late afternoon, early evening hours of Friday. And you can see that is indeed a very, very sharp dry line. Very sharp dry line right there. So that is definitely one area to watch to see in the near future if our cam models actually do show explosive development along that dry line. If so, we would be looking at a all hazards threat, including tornadoes, and maybe even, as long as there's wind shear, wouldn't surprise me if there's a low end strong tornado threat with that. I can also tell you that with a lower level jet, you got good southwesterly winds. And then what about towards the surface? Southerly wind. So you got lower level is southwesterly. Surface is southerly. And then I do want to just check your mid-levels. Those should be almost westerlies. Oh, also southwesterlies. So you definitely have some turning in height. Not a lot probably in the upper levels. Your 0 to 3 kilometer SRH. It's not horrible. It's not horrible, but it's not great. So I wouldn't say a strong tornado threat just yet with that. But either way, if storms do fire in Oklahoma, they would definitely be explosive because of that 1,500 plus cape and that sharp dry line. If they don't fire, then they will fire when the cold front slams into the dry line. That's going to be your initiating ordeal here. You have a... I don't know where the heck your low pressure is here. Okay, that's where your low pressure is. Gotcha. So your low pressure is roughly up in here. And you've got a cold front here and then a dry line down in here. And when that cold front eventually slams into the dry line, which happens overnight in this case, you could see how that dry line is just sitting there like a straight line. It's just sitting there. It's maybe moving a little bit to the east every now and then, but it's really just staying straight up from central Oklahoma right into east central Nebraska. It's just a straight line. And then once that cold front hits it, it has that more classic bend to it as that cold air is pushing along the warm, moist air, forcing those thunderstorms up. So that would upscale growth, everything in that entire area. You would be looking at a big line. And so that's why you see explosive development down here in eastern Oklahoma at like 2 a.m. So definitely a very complex situation here. If we take a look at the Euro, see if the Euro has generally the same thinking, you could see it does. One thing I automatically notice is the orientation of that dry line further north is southwest to northeast. So that's a different orientation there. And then further to the south, that dry line is not nearly as sharp to the south to north. So that would not encourage, I'd assume, much development there. The Euro is very aggressive with development, though. Shortwave? Maybe a subtle shortwave, but the Euro really develops thunderstorms Friday. Look at that. Friday evening. I mean, it explodes that dry line. And you can see the main cold front dry line back out there. Interesting. Huh. Very, very interesting. Like I said, I'd have to assume it's that little shortwave helping to ignite it, but I really can't tell. Yeah, and then also probably a big difference in the mid-levels between the two. Wow. So this would change your whole setup because your trough is actually in a better spot for severe weather. Your trough here on the Euro is in a way better spot. It is in a considerably better spot. It's not as amplified and not as clear cut. You could still see your mid-level circulation right there, your low pressure. But it's in a way better spot because you have your defluence is not way up here in Iowa and Minnesota. Instead, it's way back here over the main warm sector, back into Oklahoma, Kansas, and into northern Texas. Whereas on the GFS, at that same time, now it's way up here. So one more thing we're going to look at with this is the Canadian. Is the Canadian going to be on the Euro side or the GFS side? Euro side. Now, is the NAM going to be on the... It's probably going to be on the GFS side because that's where it normally goes towards. But let's just see if the NAM is towards the Euro and the Canadian. It's towards the GFS, yeah. Normally, the NAM is going to go with the GFS most of the time. However, it's not as fast as the GFS, which that could be the GFS's bias. Often, the GFS does accelerate troughs quicker than they normally... Or quicker than they actually do. It's a progression bias, my word. English. And I'd assume all the ensembles follow right along with that. Actually, no. Some of the ensembles don't follow along with that. Like Ensemble 1, you can see, is in a better position for severe weather than what like the deterministic would be, closer to like Ensemble 4, Ensemble 5. So the timing of that trough will be everything. And that's what we'll have to look very, very closely for. I mean, the 18Z, if anything, it amplified it significantly. Look at that. Yeesh. Both scenarios would have significant severe weather, either way. Both scenarios would have significant severe weather. Not too sure why STP, or not STP, Supercell Composite isn't a little bit higher there. Oh, it is. It's at 4. Yeah. Honestly, a very good environment. I don't know why Supercell Composite isn't into the orange. Very favorable environment. Nice southerly winds at the surface. Nice southwesterly winds in the lower level. And then nice southwesterly to westerly winds in the mid-level. Good amount of wind shear. Okay lapse rates. Good photographs. So really good sounding overall there. If we just switch on over here. That little bit of cap, 40 cap, I mean, that is... It's not really a little bit, to be honest with you. But that's not going to stop storms from firing. When you have a very strong cold front forcing along a sharp dry line, that stuff's going to explode. That's not going to initiate. I mean, you got a strong cold front from your low pressure coming in right in here. And then a sharp dry line. That's just... When those two meet, and it's going to be inevitable in this case, the storms will explode. Now, if you had like 100 cap, then I'd be saying, okay, you know, that's going to be a little bit harder to overcome. But yeah, really good sounding. That's out of north central Kansas there. If we go back to the NAM is one of those models that shows us the secondary target, Oklahoma, southern Kansas. And the reason for that, there's no huge difference. I mean, I'm generally looking at the location of these, not the actual trough itself. There's no huge difference between those two. I will say the NAM looks a bit more to the southeast, definitely. The lower level jet, definitely off to the south more on the NAM. So that's why the NAM has a more favorable environment in central Oklahoma, because of that lower level jet. And it's uncapped. And you have over 2,000 cape. The only thing is, if that doesn't ignite before the cold front hits it, it's just probably going to go upscale. You know, that dry line's got to initiate on its own from a short wave or some other thing. I feel like when that cold front slams into it, it's just going to force it to be linear. I mean, we'll still pop a sounding here just to see. Wow. Look at that tri-salot at the 700 millibar. Woof. That's a doozy. Oh my goodness, look at all the analogs. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, skip that number. It's the number before 8, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 13, 14 analogs here for the 2. Wow. Yeesh. Very good environment. Holy hodograph. Wow. You can't get a whole lot better than that for your hodograph because of how those winds are turning. Really great veering there. Great wind shear, great cape, a little bit of cap, great surface lapse rates there. Look at the 3 cape. 240. Wow. 244. Holy cow. Generally, we look for anything better than 100 with that. So 244 is extremely impressive. But again, let me see. Yeah, see, it just grows up. It just grows upscale. Like I said, you need that dry line to initiate on its own. And you don't really have any subtle short waves until after the cold front passes. So that would probably just be a wasted environment. Although a very dangerous environment there. It probably would go mainly wasted in that scenario. So yeah. My thoughts on Friday, to give you the whole rundown here. And I guess I'll use the NAM because it's kind of in between the GFS. It's closer to the GFS, which I don't like, but it's at least in between the Euro and the GFS. So the general thinking is we'll have a sharp dry line setup here. Have a sharp dry line setup roughly from central Kansas down into south central Texas. And then we'll have the rest of that just warm front advecting further to the north, back up into Wisconsin, back down to where that dry line meets. And then you'll have your main cold front here. And then you'll have your low pressure here. Plenty of instability along that dry line. The main question would be, is the dry line going to initiate on itself in the afternoon, or is it not going to? If it initiates by itself, then you're looking at a much higher tornado threat, including a strong tornado threat, probably both in Kansas and Oklahoma. Yes, that would definitely be a triple point threat, and actually that triple point would have a strong tornado threat with it too. As you can see there, you're up to 5 supercell composite there, so. Although that would grow linear quick, but still would have a conditional strong tornado threat with that. So the main area to watch would be a conditional all hazards threat down here in Oklahoma. Your main threat in this case would definitely be in here. That would be where your main threat is, and definitely damaging winds. Let's see if anything fires with that. Yep. Ooh, maybe a little bit further south of what I drew too. So, I don't know. I don't know about the northern extent. I'd say that's probably the biggest uncertainty with this is the northern extent. The SPC has that 15% all the way up into Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I don't know about that. That probably has the most uncertainty with it. Pretty good setup, though. Pretty good setup. It would definitely be, yeah, more of a QLCS threat. Definitely. Much of that enhanced risk would be QLCS. Because, again, if you have that dry line set up just like that, and you have a sharp cold front hitting it pretty much at the same time, it's going to just rapidly upscale growth all of those storms and then push them forwards, and that will probably turn them into a line. You can see the timing on the GFS is different. So you can see on the NAM, 03 Saturday, the NAM has the line there. The GFS has the line dying out down here. And then the Canadian has the line closer to where the Euro has it back in there. So 3 completely different timing scenarios, but still generally the all the same ordeal. Really all the same ordeal. A conditional all hazards threat, including a conditional strong tornado threat in Oklahoma, a conditional tornado threat along the triple point, and then upscale growth into a QLCS across central Kansas, northern Oklahoma, pushing into Missouri. Just depends on the timing. I can tell you this, if the trough is slower, like what the Canadian has, that severe threat for a QLCS is going to be a whole lot shorter. Only like this area would be at risk of that QLCS threat. Maybe even not even that much. Whereas if like the GFS is correct, well, then the entire threat has changed in terms of how long it would be, because now you're looking at a QLCS threat for this entire area. The reason why is because of Cape. If your storms fire at 5 p.m. Friday evening, they're going to be able to stay severe a whole lot longer than if they fired at 11 p.m. Friday night. So, timing of that trough. The trough is what we're having the biggest issues with. That's the biggest problem. And that is really the main driving factor. It is the main driving factor behind any severe threat. So when you have uncertainty with the trough, you're going to have uncertainty with the entire threat for severe weather. So, yep. Still a good severe threat, though. And then we could go on into Saturday. And depending on how this progresses, you could see a big old positively tilted trough. It looks like the cold front is probably going to be too weak down there in Texas and Louisiana, but that is one of the spots to watch down in Texas and Louisiana for Saturday. The secondary, a little bit more interesting area, is a low cape, high shear setup back up into Pennsylvania and Ohio. So those are your 2 main areas to watch for Saturday. This one probably more conditional because of the weak cold front, and then this one would probably be just a good chance for some damaging winds. Then we move on into next week's threat. And let me just show you. I'm not even going to dive into this. Let's just go for, I don't know. Let's go for Tuesday, right? Tuesday, a lot of hype around it for a couple pages that I've seen on Twitter. And then I also saw someone in the chat talk about Tuesday being significant. Let's just take a look at it. So let's do the same thing we did with our trough on Friday. Tuesday, trough here on the GFS. Euro. Wow. Look at that. It looks exactly the same. Not. Trough here on the Euro. Now, let's see the Canadian, because I think the Canadian, yes, the Canadian is a little bit more in line with the Euro here. So you've got 3 different scenarios from all 3 of your deterministic runs, although 2 of them are definitely closer to each other, which is why I'm kind of discounting the GFS almost from this upcoming Thursday and Friday severe weather threat. I think the GFS is almost completely wrong on. But we could just take a look at your ensembles. No need to look at your deterministics. Gracious Day, there's your ensembles. So there you go. Just a little bit of uncertainty. So to show you what certainty looks like, here's your trough for Friday. And you can see the general thinking with that. And then there's your mean. So you can really see that main trough across this area in here for Friday. And then again, let's go to Tuesday. There's Tuesday. You've got one that's way down in here. You've got a lot that are way up here. You've got some that are down up in the middle like that. So Tuesday, a lot of uncertainty. We can take a look too at the ensembles for all of these. There's a lot of ensembles, but you could see all the different possibilities. And I will say, the cutoff low seems to be more of a lower likelihood here. A lot of these look to show the scenario towards the Canadian, which would definitely bring a very widespread severe weather threat, a really widespread severe weather threat, and definitely a significant severe weather threat if that were to occur. That would be over a very large swath of the central U.S. And then there's the cutoff low scenario, like the GFS has here, where you have a cutoff low down in here, and you have relatively zonal flow well off to the north. And what does that allow for? Well, because you got a cutoff low, what's that doing? Well, that is consistently pushing instability, moisture up to the northeast. And then you have a trough up here, relatively zonal flow trough, though. So not much digging. Can't really even call that a trough. So this provides the wind shear and the forcing, and this provides the moisture and instability. And all of a sudden, you have a very clear target area right up into the Midwestern U.S. Now, this is a little bit south. There you go. There you go. There's your 18Z GFS. I did draw it a little bit too far north there. So one of them shows like a whole entire country, central part of the country, severe threat. And then the other one shows a Midwest into the New England states and Mid-Atlantic states threat. Two completely vast different scenarios there. But both end up in severe weather. Both end up being a severe threat. And there's one more thing that I love that we can look at to show you this potential. Because the potential is for sure there. Our good old GEFS daily sum of supercell composite. So we'll just go back to Tuesday. It is the 10th. The 10th, as you can see right there. 10th, right there. 10th. Big old signal. Big signal for severe weather. And also a big signal on the 9th, too. However, both of these depend on what's happening with that trough. So I think regardless, we're looking at severe weather either Monday or Tuesday. It's just a matter of where and how bad. And when. Is it going to be on Monday or is it going to be on Tuesday? Shoot, who knows? Maybe it'll be on both. I mean, in the Euro and Canadian model runs, this is the Canadian one, this would definitely provide a severe weather threat over the far southwest plains. Let's see if that initiates. Sure does. Right where I just drew, too. That would definitely be a severe threat late Monday. And then Tuesday, again, that would shift into like the entire freaking central portion of the U.S. Oh, man. And then the GFS, that has a 2-day scenario. So it does look like Monday and Tuesday will probably feature severe weather. Both of them kind of have the same ceiling, really, if you look at it. I mean, both of them have the same ceiling, nearly the same average. So both of them look like good potential. And then you can see, what is Friday like this? The 7th or the 8th? 7th? Oh, actually, that's the 6th. You can see Friday's threat is honestly like nothing compared to these two. Look at the difference. And then somehow Saturday has a good signal too. Oh. It is the 6th. Yeah. Yeah, Friday is the 6th. So Friday has a really good signal. Saturday has a semi-decent signal. And then comparing those two to this guy, it looks like nothing. So I'd imagine these two are going to be our main tornado threats out of the next week or so. Going from tonight's threat all the way till Wednesday morning next week. I would assume Monday, Tuesday next week is going to be the best opportunity for tornadoes. But again, you know, Friday, right now, Friday doesn't look anything better than a large 2% and like maybe a very narrow 5%. And I say narrow 5%. I didn't say small 5%. I said narrow because that could be a 5% like right in here. Right in there. Maybe even more narrow than that. A very narrow, long 5%. And then a huge 2% is what I would be thinking for Friday. Based on the models now. But we don't do probabilities. SPC doesn't do probabilities that far out. The SPC does not issue probabilities beyond, at least for tornado, wind, and hail, they don't issue that beyond day 2. So, oh, what did I just do? Okay, I thought I messed up something. So, big time different setups here. Definitely big time different setups between the NAM GFS and then comparing it to the Canadian and the Euro. The NAM would definitely have a lesser severe threat on Thursday, but probably a better threat on Friday. The GFS would have a decent threat Thursday and then a decent threat Friday. I'll go take a look at those, Caden. Is a lot of people looking at them right now because they're broken. Some of them are down on the side I'm using. Gracious day, that is a fully loaded Friday, doesn't it? Yeah, that initiates on the dry line. That's... The thing is, that's far south, so I don't know if that would be much of a tornado threat into Texas, but those in northeastern Oklahoma, that would interest me. Holy crap, that would be bad. Now that would be a high-end scenario right there. Let me look at... Holy crap. You'd be looking at probably a moderate for tornadoes if that were to come to fruition. That would probably end up being a 15 sig in southeast Kansas. That is a loaded gun model run right there. Semi-discrete to discrete supercells in southeastern Kansas, northeastern Oklahoma. Does this have it? No, I don't think this does. I can't show it. I'd have to quickly make a $200 purchase in order to show you. This might go out at least to give you an idea. Yeah. So this is for Thursday. So this would at least give you an idea. Imagine these cells further to the west and more discrete. So this stuff further west over here and more discrete and a more favorable environment. And this cold front is much slower. What does the trough look like on that? So it's the highest end scenario, really. It's like the worst case scenario for this upcoming Friday, which means it's pretty unlikely. I got to see what the trough looks like. That is for sure 1 billion% favoring the Canadian and the Euro. Heck yeah, even more than that, actually. That's actually almost the NAM. That's almost the NAM scenario, actually. The main difference between the model run that has all those discrete storms in Oklahoma and the NAM is the slightest bit faster and the NAM has a closed low. Yeah, so it's almost a NAM scenario. Like, just imagine a little bit more potent of an environment over this area. A little bit more to the north too. So like this entire area, very favorable environment. And then almost the same trough as like the NAM. And then yeah, like semi-discrete storms trying to fire in Kansas and Oklahoma and Texas. So if that happens, we're talking probably moderate caliber if that were to unfold. Now the low end scenario is also a possibility. I don't want to just look at the high end scenario, scare you to death. But there's also a low end scenario here, which is like the GFS model run. We would still end up with severe weather, but it would be mainly just a big line. You'd really just be dealing with a big line across these areas, moving to the southeast. And there would definitely be a chance for a few spin up tornadoes with that QLCS. But that is the lower end ordeal there. It would be a much less impactful event if that would have happened. It would still be a widespread damaging wind event, but you wouldn't be dealing with multiple strong tornadoes being possible. I don't think it will go Friday. I don't think that is actually going to come to fruition. I don't think that model run is going to be correct. Because that's like if everything goes right with the environment. And that's such a slim chance of happening. We would have to be very, very unlucky for that to happen. That thing's got 60-degree dew points all the way up into freaking south central Wisconsin. At what time? 00Z. That's like the high-res Canadian setup, too. Very similar between the two. Uh-huh. Actually, so similar that the high-res Canadian fires in Oklahoma and Kansas, too. Yep. Right there. And then look, your cold front's way back up in here. So look at that. But there's one big difference. The high-res Canadian sucks with CAPE, so it puts pretty much a CAPE hole over southeast Kansas and northeastern Oklahoma. And again, if I just show you. Also, this model run has the trough weaker than the model run I was looking at on my other monitor. But really, that's what, that's kind of the high-end setup where you have a very large trough, really great timing across the central southern plains. It's not like extremely large, but it's pretty large there. And it's slow too. That's the biggest thing, is it's much slower than the GFS or the NAM? Really, the GFS is like the main fast model there. So the more I look at this, the more I'm like, okay, the GFS is absolutely horrible today. That's kind of the takeaway from this live stream. I wish I could see the Euro ensembles. I don't know if I can from here. Nope. Actually I can. Yeah, completely different. Like the Euro ensembles are in great agreement that our trough, this line right here, that line is like way back down in here, meaning a much slower trough ejection. So, yeah, I think the GFS is handling this horribly, but either way, again, either scenario, we end up with a enhanced risk caliber setup that is impactful. Just one scenario is more impactful than the other. If we end up with a high-res Canadian and Euro model type of setup, we're going to be looking at strong tornadoes being possible. If we look towards more of a GFS and NAM scenario, we'll have a much higher chance of seeing those QLCS tornadoes over a larger area. But either way, we end up with the damaging wind threat. Either way, we'll have some sort of tornado threat, and either way, we'll have some sort of hail threat. Just a matter of how significant we're talking. Actually, really, the only model run that's like a complete outlier, Kevin, is the GFS. Even the NAM shows a higher end scenario. It still shows a big time QLCS threat, but it still would have that strong tornado threat being possible. And with the NAM's overmixing biased, I'm sure if this actually were to come to fruition, it would actually fire along the dry line, which you can almost see it actually nearly does there, right in that area. So really the GFS is out to lunch on this one, and really most models are pointing towards a higher caliber setup. Now, given it's definitely not a great setup, but definitely would be, yeah, I mean, yeah, you can see how the GFS and the NAM, those have that strong lower level jet right in here, so they are in more agreement with each other. But you could see how the GFS is still further off to the northeast than the NAM, so still the GFS is a bigger outlier. And you could see this, is this a confluence band? Call me crazy, but it looks like a confluence band on the Canadian high res, the Canadian model run, and the Euro. Is that a confluence band from like the high pressure going up and in like that? Because you've got a strong high pressure way out here. I mean, it looks like it to me. Yeah, that's a confluence band. Take a look at 700 millibar. It's not as good of a confluence band on 700 millibar, but you can really see it. Yeah. You want to look closer to the surface for those confluence bands, not further up in the atmosphere. So, 700 millibar, you're not really going to be seeing a confluence band unless it's very defined on 700 millibars. But it looks like it is, like right up in here. And again, even the NAM shows this. I just realized I'm using the NAM and I drew that out. This is using 925 millibar, so this is pretty dang far. In the lower levels. Close to the surface. I can tell you this, the NAM doesn't have as good of a confluence band for sure. The GFS has an okay one. But the Canadian model run, that one has almost a clear-cut confluence band. If we go back on that, we go back here. There you go. You can very, very clearly see the enhanced flow right in there. Very clearly. And you can see that enhanced flow even continues. See those yellow pixels down in here? So it even continues into Texas. And by the way, if you don't know what a confluence band is, basically it's like a little area of weak forcing that can fire storms. And that's what made that's really what makes the bigger high-end severe weather threats. Uh, just off the top of my head, I'm not saying it's going to be anything like it, but April 27th, 2011, it had two very strong confluence bands, and both of those fired multiple discrete supercells in Alabama. They are very common in Dixie Alley. They're a little less common when you get into the plains, and they're very, very rare when you get up into the central or northern plains. So one that is like this, it's not extremely rare, but it is, it's not something you see with every severe event out in the southern plains. So if that were to happen, basically it'd be a focal point for initiation of discrete supercells. So you would have a much higher end tornado threat across this area. You would have a much higher end tornado threat across that area because of that confluence band. And it would allow for discrete to semi-discrete storms to fire. You can see it actually, it's even initiating down into central Texas too. But again, a model run like the GFS doesn't have nearly as well defined of that confluence band, although you could still see it. You could still see it on the GFS. The timing is just off. The timing of the GFS in the trough is off, so your best wind shear is leaving the area as your confluence band is the strongest. Whereas on like the Canadian, the main wind shear is still over. You can see here, main wind shear is still over Oklahoma and Kansas because that trough is perfectly timed. So you've got a great negatively tilted trough mixed with that confluence band in there. And again, if I just switch to the GFS to show you once more, confluence band, very difficult to see on the 500 millibar, obviously, but we know it's roughly in there. And look at that, trough way off to the north. So your confluence band probably wouldn't do next to anything for the GFS scenarios. So we're going to have to see how that evolves through our 0Z runs tonight and into our 12Z runs tomorrow. But honestly, as for the SPC outlook, I agree with this very well. I don't see a reason to change much with this outlook. I think they'll have small adjustments as they normally do with these outlooks, but I don't see any need for any big adjustments going into the day 3 outlook. I hope they ain't do no day 3 moderate. There would have to be an extremely amount of high confidence with the 00Z runs to pull that. We would have to see an uptrend in like all of our global models. If you were to ask me, I'm not even going to say my probs. But yeah, there's a reason why they don't do tornado outlooks on the day 4 outlook. So we won't get a tornado probability for another 2 days on this outlook from the SPC. And by then, everything could downtrend. You got to keep it in mind that severe weather threats, the only way they go isn't up. They don't always uptrend. We could easily see a downtrend to where the trough speeds up more. And all these models that show this confluence band, not the GFS, the Canadian, the NAM, and the Euro, those could all shift to the GFS side of things, and the whole trough could speed up. Now, I doubt it, but that is a possibility. There is a possibility that all 3 of those runs trend towards the GFS, although it doesn't happen often. That's what happened with our blizzard in the Northeast. The GFS called that thing out like between 160, 180 hours out. The GFS started showing a major blizzard in the northeastern U.S., and no other model runs were showing it. And by the time we got to the day 2 time frame, the GFS nailed it, and all the other model runs caved to the GFS. But that's like the only time that's happened in this entire winter. So most of the time, other models, the GFS is going to cave to the other models, not the other way around. Why is Friday looking better than Wednesday? Uh, Everything. Yes. Better cape on Friday. Better wind shear on Friday. Better trough on Friday. Um, it just everything's better. Better lower level jet on Friday. Dew points are almost the same on Friday, honestly. Wednesday we're looking at that sharp area of 50, high 50s, low 60s dew points, and that's where we're going to see storms really fire the most. And then if we go back to here, we go to Friday. Really, we're looking at the same ordeal, high 50s, low 60s, and we're going to see storms fire right along that cold front in here with a possible confluence band in central or eastern Oklahoma into southeastern Kansas. What does the SPC say for day 4? Real quick, actually, I want to check this model. Hopefully, okay, is working now. I want to see this run real quick. This is another long-range cam model that I can't show you guys, unfortunately. Let me see. Oh, actually, that one's not into Friday. Okay, it's into the morning hours of Friday. So that one hasn't rendered in yet for 12Z. So, yeah, let me go read what the SPC says. Okay, noted. They don't really mention much about the hazards. They do say supercells should be capable of producing tornadoes, large hail, and severe wind gusts. Ah, actually, listen to this. The greatest potential is forecast from near the Red River in northern Texas, northward across eastern Oklahoma into eastern Kansas. Then they do add into northwestern Missouri as well. So that's where the 30% risk area is. But really, that main supercell threat, I think, is going to stick on that southern side. That's where I think that main supercell threat will be. I think up here is going to end up being more of a linear mode up here. I don't expect much of a supercell threat up there. Chance for a moderate risk, there's a chance for it, but we're going to have to see, in order to get a moderate, we're going to have to start seeing some uptrends by specifically the GFS, and also our cam models are going to have to be in agreement. And if you're talking about a moderate on day 3, heck no. I mean, there's always that very, very slim chance, but my goodness, I really don't think there's need for much change on the SPC outlook. Like I said, I think they're going to have a little change. They may disextend the southern side of that 15%, but yeah, really, I don't think there's need for much change. At least on that Friday outlook. I've just been looking at the GFS for this event mainly. Yeah. If you don't pay for a site like I don't, it's hard not to just look at the GFS. But the main thing I like to do is compare the 500 millibar, because you can do that if you look at the top here. You can barely see it off the screen. So this is the GFS right here. So you have the GFS underlined in pink, then you have the Euro underlined in black, and then you have the CMC Canadian underlined in yellow. And then in blue, you have the That's the high-res Canadian, and then blue as well, you have the NAM. So in short range, I like to compare all 5 of those on the 500 millibar. In the medium range, I like to compare just the GFS, the Euro, and the low-res Canadian. So what I'll do is I'll go to the GFS, take note of where that trough is, low pressure here, low pressure here, main trough here. Choose a different color. We'll go to the Euro. Low pressure way back here, main trough up here. Then we have the Canadian, low pressure here, trough here. So you can clearly see the outlier, right? You can very clearly see the outlier. And then since we're in the medium range, let's just throw in the NAM. And we'll throw in dark blue. So even then, you can still see the GFS has the progression bias that is up to the northeast. Still a big outlier. And the NAM even is a bit of an outlier. It's not as big of an outlier, but the NAM is still an outlier compared to the European ensembles, as well as compared to the European deterministic, the Canadian deterministic as well. And we could even throw in the wrap model here probably. Because look at the difference. What looks the most similar here? If we throw in the wrap 00Z on Friday, the 520 contour mixed with the contour south of that, right in there. And then we go to the GFS. Look at that. The 520 contour is now way down in here. And the Euro, very close to that. The Canadian, very close to that. The high-res Canadian, very close to that. So you even with that, the wrap is even confirming that the GFS is likely initiating wrong. And where does this start being wrong? That's really where it starts being wrong, is how far south this trough goes. And I mean, it swings it so quickly. The GFS is just so quick to get that trough out of there. And the other models are pretty slow with it traversing. The high-res Canadian takes its sweet time. So the quicker this thing moves off to the northeast, likely the lower severe threat you're going to end up having. Because if your trough is way up here, so this is 00Z, but let's just assume your trough is way up here at 21Z. Instead of like 7 p.m., it's there at like 4 p.m. What that does is that shifts your entire forcing mechanism way off to the north and your main wind shear way off to the north, whilst your main instability is still chilling back down in here, roughly. So it would really, your main two things wouldn't align. Your main instability pocket, your warm sector wouldn't align, and your main trough wouldn't align. So if this does speed up, if models do trend towards the GFS tonight into tomorrow morning, that would be a downtrend. Now, if the GFS pulls back towards the Euro and the Canadian, then we're going to be more on track to what the SPC has with that large 30% chance. Regardless, if it speeds up, we're still going to get severe weather. If it slows down, we're still going to get severe weather. But if it speeds up, there's a much better chance we have a lower severe threat. It would be a lower end severe threat if that trough gets out of here quicker. And if it slows down, it'd be a higher end severe threat. All right, let's see. So this is the RFSA model run. This is today's outlook here. So again, very late tonight, looking at probably 1:30, 2 a.m. roughly. We're expecting storms to fire across the west side of our marginal risk. A best chance for large hail will be the first hour or two that those fire, and then they're going to grow upscale into a clustery mess, and just an isolated severe threat as those progress off to the east, and then into tomorrow's outlook. Those storms will still be progressing east tomorrow afternoon, close to 4 p.m. We'll have probably a weak line or cluster of damaging winds there. Some isolated hail, maybe a brief tornado on the tail end of that. 6 o'clock, we'll have our conditional large hail threat back down here near and southwest of Dallas. That is what I'm most interested in tomorrow, is if those storms do fire towards 6 p.m. Eastern time. Then we'll go into the overnight hours here. Very, very late hours tomorrow, 11 o'clock. That line weakens into southeastern Indiana, southern Ohio. We'll continue with some slop across Missouri, Arkansas, Oklahoma, just isolated small hail, isolated damaging winds. And then our severe threat down here in southern Texas will start to end towards 11 p.m. midnight as those storms slowly fade away. And then we'll continue with an overnight low wind severe weather threat across a very large chunk of this area. We'll continue with a low end overnight severe weather threat tomorrow night into Thursday morning. Thursday morning, those storms push off to the east. Thursday afternoon, we really don't see much out of these. Again, we'll have, the chance for maybe some isolated rain showers, rumble of thunder with those. And same goes for up here into Ohio, Pennsylvania. Although I would be watching that a little bit closer. This is for Thursday. Maybe isolated wind gust, isolated 1-inch hail up there around the Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania area on Thursday. And then Thursday, these actually initiate early. Thursday evening, 7 o'clock here, pretty early. 7 o'clock here, we start to see some supercells fire along that dry line. Definitely primary hazard is large hail, although you can't rule out a brief weak tornado with them, as well as 60-mile-an-hour wind gust. And then depending on how those evolve, we may see a locally higher threat for damaging wind gusts across the northeastern side of that slight risk, depending on if that evolves into a line or if it just dies out. Which right now, there's a lot of uncertainty on that. And then we finally get on into Friday on this model run, which has quite a lot of uncertainty. This model run really doesn't portray that great of a severe weather threat. To be honest with you, really not a whole lot happens on this. You do get a pretty strong line into Wisconsin and northeast Iowa. Very strong there. Your QLCS relatively on the weaker side across Missouri and Kansas. And then you do indeed get some supercell development off that confluence band. So still 3 main areas for severe weather on this model run, although none of them look very impressive here. And again, that is into Friday. So that's just the general thinking over the next few days. Obviously, Friday has the highest uncertainty with it, but we're generally thinking a QLCS possible with some prefrontal cells. Those prefrontal cells may be into Arkansas, eastern Oklahoma, or they could be even further west than that. It all depends on that cold front. Because if that cold front, the further west that cold front is, the further west that confluence band is. So if that cold front is way up here, way back up in here towards the evening hours, instead of it being here, it's back here. The confluence band, instead of setting up out here, it would set up over here. Maybe even a little more west than that. And that all comes down to the trough. And there's your trough. I really can't tell because this isn't a great... I don't compare this, but this... I don't compare on this site. Normally I use College DuPage or Pivotal. But this looks like it might be closer to... at least a little bit closer to the Euros solution. I'll go compare this on Pivotal real quick. It doesn't look like the GFS's solution. (21Z) Friday. Yep, it is a little bit quicker than the euro, but it is definitely more in line with the euro than the GFS. Definitely well more in line with the euro than the GFS. So again, if this were to come to fruition, which is kind of the almost the middle ground in between the euro and the GFS here, slower than the GFS, bit quicker than the euro, that would be a damaging wind threat up here, maybe a spin up tornado. Damaging wind threat, a couple spin up tornadoes, and some small hail here, and then a large hail, a few tornadoes, and 60-mile-an-hour winds, some damaging winds with that. And of course, if you compare that to the SPC outlook here for day 4, well, nearly nailing it for those two. That confluence band is a little bit off to the east than most model runs. But you could see, I mean, if that confluence band was a little bit further west, like what the Canadian has, the NAM, and the Euro, those storms would be almost dead center, if not on the east side of that enhanced risk. That main QLCS almost completely, if not completely, inside of that enhanced risk. And then this other line is a big uncertainty. Some models have it, some models don't have it. It comes down to the warm sector with that. Like the GFS, that has next to no instability up there. Very little instability. Even the Canadian there as well. So I don't really think we're going to be seeing much of a line up there. The only reason why that would happen is a strong line forms as the cold front slams the dry line, and then somehow that keeps it alive with little to no cape just because of all that forcing. I don't really see that happening though. But I mean, SPC's got a 15% chance up there for severe weather for a reason, so we'll see if they keep that tomorrow. We'll see if they keep that 15% that far north. All right. So if you guys have any questions about this upcoming severe threat, go ahead and put them in chat, and I'll try to get to a few here. And if you haven't already, make sure you hit the like button on this stream. Share the stream with your family, friends, social media. It's greatly appreciated. And consider hitting that subscribe button with the notification bell set to all so you know when our next live stream is. It may be tomorrow. Is tomorrow that slight risk? Yeah, I may end up going live tomorrow evening right about the same time as today. Depending on exactly what I'm doing tomorrow evening. But I'm a little bit interested to see if those supercells do end up firing in Central Texas. If storm mode can get itself together, we could see a moderate. Yeah. Yeah, I would be looking for mainly the confluence band. I'm not sure if we're going to be able to get a moderate out of the QLCS threat in terms of damaging winds. But a moderate is for sure pushing it with this type of setup. That is definitely pushing it. Definitely by no means impossible. And there's definitely a chance for it, but a moderate's definitely pushing it. Let's see here. Yeah, I think so, Haley. I mean, right now, Jefferson, like, if you asked my opinion and said, do you think this is going to be moderate? No. But there is a chance. Thankfully, we are technically 3 days out. Thankfully, we are 3 days out. And I say that because there's still a lot of uncertainty. So we can watch over the next, 2 days to see which way this trends. And depending on how that trends, the SPC, it's all up to them, I have no and zero influence over what the SPC does. Zero influence on the SPC. So it's up to them. But I can, kind of guess based off of model trends. And right now, I mean, things are just kind of really where the SPC outlook is, honestly. Like, not a lot has changed today, really. If they just kept this outlook exactly the same tomorrow, I wouldn't blame them. Because really not a whole lot has changed for today's model runs. Now they'll be able to see the 00Z runs before they do the day 4 through 8 outlook, which it will actually be the day 3 outlook at this point, because this is the day 4, so it will go to the day 3 tomorrow, and they'll be able to see those 00Z runs. I probably won't be up for many of those 00Z runs. I'm normally up for the 00Z GFS and HRRR. Other 00Z runs like the Euro, that doesn't come in until like freaking 3 a.m. or something on College Due page. I ain't up for that. I can tell you this, if they're going to pull a moderate, it is definitely not going to be on day 3. I don't see a single reason on why they would pull a moderate tomorrow for day 4 right now, for Friday. Now, if you look at this setup on paper, there is nothing that screams moderate risk. Especially when you have such low dew points. But yeah, the big thing is, you don't have a crazy amount of high temps either. So is there a cloud cover issue here? Is that what's happening? Yeah. So the cloud cover actually keeps temperatures cool. So see, that could be a problem. If you don't have cloud cover here, those temps might rise to what they are in central Oklahoma. You could be talking about upper 70s there. And if that does happen, yeah, I mean, it doesn't look to be a huge issue. I was thinking maybe maybe your dew points would be too low. You'd have that 10-degree temperature dew point spread. If it gets into the 80s, that might be a problem. If we're talking about like 64 dews and 80 temps, that's going to be a problem. But if we do have some cloud cover to keep that into the low to mid 70s, it won't be too much of an issue. Storm Dakota, you're probably not going to get much. You're in northwest Iowa, right? Are you in that 15%, or are you like on the edge of it? It depends on the timing of the trough for you, because if the trough is fast, you're going to get nothing. But if the trough is slow, you might have to watch out for an isolated damaging wind threat. But my expectation would be extremely low up there. I would not be expecting much more than rain. I would have very low expectations if I were you. I'm assuming, you want to have a chase day, so. Now, if you're worried about the severe weather, this looks awesome. If you're worried about severe weather being a problem up there, this looks great, because not many, if any, model runs show you getting severe weather. I'll pull it like right there. One of these 2 frames. This one or the... Okay, we'll do this one, and we'll do it in like north central Oklahoma. Northeastern. See, that would be an issue. That would be an issue. That would definitely help to not initiate discrete storms if there was like a confluence band that set up. That would definitely hurt. And the reason why, if I'm just going to zoom this in real quick, look how sharply those temperatures climb. I mean, obviously it cools with height, but I was looking at this the other way. You're rapidly warming as you get closer to the surface. Which, warming is not a problem, but rapidly warming is going to be an issue. If it was just like this, if it just continued like a normal I can't even draw straight. If it just continued like that, relatively just straight, this makes no sense. A straight diagonal line makes a lot of sense right there, huh? If it just went straight up to the top left like that, it wouldn't be much of a problem. The problem is when it goes sharply up like that, and then back up, and then up like that again. Now, this didn't create a warm nose, which is good, because a warm nose would be sharper like that. That would be a warm nose. If you had... We're going to look at this from the top down, so that way I don't keep getting confused here. Starting at about 700 millibar and then ending towards the surface. A warm nose would be where you're rapidly cooling, then extremely quickly warming, and then extremely quickly cooling. And then you go back down to warming again. So you go from cooling. I'm doing this backwards and it's killing me. So we're going to do it from the bottom up. It's murder if you do this from the other side because you cool with height. Because a warm nose is where it's warm, obviously. It's more warm than towards the surface. So you cool with height. Everybody knows that, right? You're cool with height, cool with height, cool with height. And then you randomly start to warm. And then you start to cool again. There you go. That is a warm nose. If that were to happen, that's a warm nose. My word. That's a warm nose. Cooling with height, rapid warming, and then cooling with height. That is your biggest issue. That creates a cap. Another issue is where you are rapidly cooling, and then you slowly start to cool, because what that means is the surface is very hot, and then in the upper, this would be lower levels, and then in the lower levels, it's starting to cool normally. So that can create a significant gap between those dew points and those temperatures. Now, that's not a big problem typically in May, because in May, when you look at your severe weather setups, you're going to have 70-degree dew points, and that's not really much of an issue. If you have 70-degree dew points, 75-degree dew points, and then you have 80 temps, that's not a big issue. The problem is when these temperatures are very hot at the surface, 76, 80 degrees Fahrenheit, and then since we're just now getting into spring, your dew points are in the upper 50s to low 60s. That's your problem. These lines are nowhere close to each other. That's a 14-degree temperature dew point spread. That's your problem. And what that allows for is elevated storms. That means that in order for a storm to fire, it has to travel further up before it actually explodes and intensifies. Whereas if these were closer to each other, that storm would fire just a couple hundred feet off from the surface. I actually don't know like how typical, I'm going to look that up real quick. Google time. Let's see. That ain't right. This thing said 52,000 feet. Yeah, roughly like, what, 3,000? Roughly like 3,000 feet. So, think at the surface, a storm fires 3,000 feet up. If it's a more elevated day, that surface, or not the surface, the storm might fire closer to like 5,000 feet up. And that could be a huge problem for storms, because that parcel has to rise a lot further before it can actually turn into a cloud and explode into a thunderstorm. Very complicated. It's not basic, easy stuff. And I'm not a very good explainer either. But the biggest problem is a warm nose, which again, warm nose is where the atmosphere is normally cooling, and then you rapidly warm and then continue cooling. That creates a warm nose. And guess what? That creates an issue for the parcel too. because that parcel turns into, it turns into a thunderstorm. It starts to really fire in here. It starts to become nice and strong in here. Really strong thunderstorm trying to explode up into the upper levels. And then all of a sudden it just hits this warm nose and boom, it's blocked. It can't get through that warm atmosphere because it's too sharp. It warmed way too quickly. And now sometimes that cap will break too. That's when you see explosions along a dry line. Like when a cold front slams into that dry line, it rapidly lifts those parcels up. It doesn't slowly pull them up like what a weaker shortwave may do, or like a confluence band may do, or something like that. It's going to rapidly force them up because that cold air is rapidly slamming into warm air, and it forces that parcel up. I'm not going to stay through 00ZH no. Very cool stuff. I'm terrible at explaining it, but it's very awesome stuff. If you want to know more about it, buy a college book, because I suck at explaining things. But yeah, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up here. I'm going to wrap up. Can't do longer than an hour briefing anymore because I lose a brain cell. Has it ever snowed in a tornado threat before? Warm front? I don't know. I have no idea. Maybe. Maybe. But yeah. I know it's been 2 hours, Caden. That's why you're getting the TRG that can't talk straight. Can't even explain a warm nose. That's why I've lost a brain cell. All right. I'm going to go ahead and conclude, y'all. I appreciate you for tuning in. I hope you guys have a fantastic rest of your day. I may see you guys tomorrow. If not, I will definitely see you Thursday. I should see you guys tomorrow. I'll probably be live tomorrow, so I'll plan on it. If not, it is what it is, but I'll plan to go live tomorrow around 6 p.m. Eastern. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys have a fantastic rest of your day. Stay safe, watch the severe weather, and thank you, mods, for modding chat. Goodbye. Stay safe, watch the severe weather, and I'll see you guys in hopefully tomorrow's live stream. Have a great rest of your night. Thank you, mods, for on chat. Goodbye.